Hi everyone, my name is Monica and I'm a very grateful alcoholic. Hello. Um, first, I'm gonna give myself half the time for Babe, or maybe I'll go less because I know Babe likes to talk, so I might give him more. But anyway, Monica, grateful alcoholic. There are a few things that I do like to start off with before I speak at any meeting. I ask, and it's that I pray before each meeting and I ask God to speak through me. I ask God to use me as a vessel to give whatever message it is that He needs me to give and to allow me to speak from the heart where He is, to allow me to be honest, open, vulnerable, cry if I have to cry. And I usually do end up crying just to, for you guys to know. There's always tears. And yeah, so if there's anything, and to allow me to help at least one person in whichever room that I'm in. So if there's anything that I say tonight that offends anyone, I do like to say, tell your higher power to talk to my higher power and they can hash it out because I have absolutely nothing to do with this. This is all God. And so, I have a sobriety date. It's April 13 of 2018. That is tomorrow. I will be celebrating 7 years. And I am very, oh shoot, I didn't start my timer, but I see the timer up there. I'm very, I don't know the word to be honest with my whole anniversary thing, but it's just like this feeling of like unbelievable and like is this real? And is this like real life? And look, I'm already crying. It's not even 5 minutes in. And it's just because it is unbelievable. And then today I was talking to my sponsor earlier, to Babe, and I kind of mentioned like, how do I go from like being this person that was like so sick and so broken and so desperate to not want to live, or someone that was found in a bathtub dying, overdosing on a bunch of shit, to a person that gets asked to speak about genuine humility. Like if there's anything that is, or like any doubts about this, like this is real and like this program works, and this whole AA thing is it works as long as I put the work into it. And am I breaking up so far or am I good? Okay, that's not good.
You're good on my end.
Oh, okay. I didn't see anyone moving, so I was scared. Okay. All right. So yeah, to share on genuine humility and today I live with so much like gosh, it sounds so corny to say peace, but it is peace, and it's like this serenity that I feel like is those two words are not enough to explain peace. I feel like there should be something more, and like the only thing that I can think of more is God. And that's exactly what it is, that today I have so much God in my life, in my heart, in my body, my soul, around me, surrounding me, like everywhere I go, that it allows me to be at this peace, this state of like of just love, of humility. And I bring that up because I didn't know what humility meant when I first came into the pro. I didn't know what it meant for a long time. Like to me, it was just like being humble. I don't know, like humble was just humble, and I didn't know exactly what that meant. And to me, I just thought that being humble was saying that you just saying not saying that you were humble. And that's it. Like it didn't go any further than that. I always mention that I'm not a very uh I'd never considered myself to be like an intellectual person, or someone that was have all this intelligence of like books and stuff like that, and memorization or anything like that. Um, so it was like I came into this program not knowing a lot of things, not knowing a lot of words, and kind of being embarrassed at one point about how other people can memorize or quote the big book, and until I realized that it wasn't about that, that it was about being able to just experience the big book and not have to quote it word for word. And so with this whole humility thing, it took a while. I was in this program for 2 years, and at 2 years, I was still like feeling a little, I don't want to say miserable, but I still wasn't all right there in the head. I don't know if I really am right now, but whatever. That's not the point. The point is that I didn't know exactly what, oh, everyone's freezing now. Should I switch to my phone? No, we're good? Okay. Okay, cool. Sorry, I have to check just in case. But it's this whole it took me a while. The only way that I could define humility was by saying by using God as humility, by saying that the more God in my life, the more humility, and the more humility, the more God. And that's the only way that I could um describe it. And still to this day, it's like when it comes to step 7, right? It's I get to do whatever God's will is for me. I get to do today everything that I have the opportunity of doing for God and God only, so that I can be of maximum service to all the people in my life, to all the people that I come across. And so like being able to actually take action in step 7 and being able to do God's will and just try to strive for that perfection in God's eyes every single day, and to do the best that I can for God and do what God's objective would be for me and not for Monica. Like all of that is what got me closer and closer to God, which brought God closer, like more into my life, which allowed me to demonstrate humility. I don't want to say to show humility, but to demonstrate humility, but through God. And it's like, I feel like this whole humility thing, it's not me trying my best to be humble, but just doing whatever I can for God. And in return, I become humble. And there's sometimes I have, friends that ask me, for advice, and I'm not the best person to give advice, but all I ever like to mention is like, whatever you do it with grace and do it with God. And I feel like as long as I do everything with God and with grace, with grace and with God in mind, then it's the best turnout that it could be. And that to me is part of this whole humility thing, where I'm just doing whatever I can do for God. And that's exactly, I mean, like, who would have thought? Like, I didn't come into this program to do anything for God. I mean, I came into this program not wanting anything to do with God, to be honest. I would run out of these rooms when I would hear people pray. I would run out when I would hear people mention God, or some people say Jesus Christ, or some people are extremely whatever it was. Like, I didn't want anything to do with it. And so little by little, this whole God thing, like this whole opening of 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 making the decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God, it just like opened up that portal. I don't know what, or my heart, I should say. I feel like that's the best. It opened up my heart to be able to to get to the point, right? I mean, I love that the steps are all in order for a reason, right? I make the decision, I do my inventory so I can be closer to the sunlight of the spirit. I tell someone all about it. I feel the presence of my creator coming into me, flowing through me, all this stuff. And then I go into step 6 and I start striving for the perfection in God's eyes, to then begin to do all the work that I have to do for God still to this day, every single day for the rest of my life. What an order. I can't go. And like that, I mean, it sounds crazy, like something that seems unattainable, but I feel like the more that I do it, by just practicing all these principles in all my affairs, the more that I do all of this is just the more of me working for God. And I feel like it's just something so hard to even or I don't want to say so hard to talk about, to be able to describe, especially someone like me. And if my friends know me, I'm just like terrible with words and I'm always scrambly and all over the place. But someone like me, that the only thing I can ever express is just my emotions and my feelings with all these things. It's not something that I can, sit here and describe beautifully, but it's just something that I've been able to experience in life because of this program. And so there's this thing that I started um that I came not across, but like something that came to my mind one day when I was having some trouble, I guess with personal relationships, or yeah, I guess personal relationships. And it was just this whole thing that I started asking myself, is this going to draw me closer to God or further away from God? And that was kind of like my measuring, I don't know, my measuring stick in a way, or like my way to see if this was me doing God's work, or if there were selfish motives behind it. And so I started making the right decisions, and then I came to another realization that if I have to ask myself that, then it's probably the latter. Then I'm probably then I'm probably getting further away from God and not closer to God. And like, and now this whole genuine thing, this whole, because I'm like trying to like separate genuine and humility to like kind of bring them together. And like to me, genuine is almost like exactly like humility. It's just like I feel like they're the same words put together in a way, or two words that are just that mean the exact same thing to me. Whereas like genuine is humility. Like it's something that is done from like with good intentions from the bottom of my heart, which is where God is, which is where humility comes from, which is genuine humility. Right? And today, like all this humility stuff, it's just like me being able to just show up and being able to show up with God, do God's work wherever I am, wherever He is, with whoever else is around me. And like showing up with God, like to me, showing up with God is like being able to show up with love, with humility, with understanding, with consideration, with compassion. Stuff that I never had. Stuff that I never even imagined having in my entire life. Something that seems so far-fetched. Right? And I just get so emotional. And it's just like showing up with all these things allows me to be to be this enthusiastic person. There's so many people that are like, oh, you're so enthusiastic. You're so cheerleader for AA, cheerleader for that, or you're so excited. What a party. And it seems like a performance almost like it's too good to be true. Like, even babe, like you guys are full of shit, maybe some might say. It has been told to me, to be honest. There was a meeting where I was speaking on, and some person said that's load of bullshit. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I get it. Like, it seems like it. Because it does. It seems like something like, how, how can, how can people even be that enthusiastic or that excited? I feel like excited isn't even the word, but yeah, enthusiastic. I guess that's the best word to use, but how can someone be so enthusiastic about AA or about the steps or about the big book or about sponsorship or about life? Just life, because it's not just in here, it's outside of here, it's everywhere I go. wherever in the world with whoever I'm with. And that's just that. It's just pure enthusiasm that comes from God. And it's not a show. It's just all the stuff that I get to I guess be put together by. I don't know if this is making sense for anyone, but like I feel like I am able to be like built with all these things because of God, like love, consideration, understanding, compassion, humility, like all these things I only have because of God. I feel like that is the only reason, because without God, then it's just Monica. And then Monica just wants to do whatever it is that she feels that she needs to do for herself. Things that are selfish, things that are for her own motives. That even if I think I have the best of intentions, there's still like this master manipulator behind all of it. And then today, like I don't have to do that. Today, all I have to do is whatever I get to do for God. And it sounds a little repetitive, but that, I mean, there's like not there's like that's exactly what this is for me. Okay, waking up every single morning and starting my prayer, starting my meditation, and asking God to surprise me, to show God that I'm here, that I'm awake, that I'm aware of His presence, that I'm ready to do whatever it is that He needs me to do. I ask Him to show me, to guide me, to inspire me, to put people in my path. What can I pack into the stream of life? Like all these things that I get to be a part of today for God. And in return, God provides everything, everything for me. Things that I didn't know. Things like, I'm in fucking, sorry, excuse me. I didn't mean to curse. I got super excited for a second. But I'm in Austria right now. Austria. To celebrate my anniversary. And it's like it's not about my anniversary, but to me it's like about this whole celebration of my spirituality with for like my relationship with God. Like I'm in Austria right now and I'm someone that hasn't had a job in I don't even know how long it's been, but it's been a long time. Right? Haven't had a car in a very long time. How the heck am I in Austria right now? Like, how does this happen? It's just all these things really blow my mind, and and it just continues to happen. Like God just continues to provide and show up, but only He's just not here like, hey Monica, let's get rocking. I'm gonna give you all these things. No, like I have to do everything that I can do today for God. And in return, God does all of these things in my life for me. Not the things that I want or the things that I think I need or things I think I want or whatever it is that I feel is my little plans and my designs. None of that. It's God's plans, God's designs for Monica. Right? I'm just it really is, and this whole like gosh, this whole like humility thing. There's a part in step 7 in the 12 and 12. I was actually just reading it before the meeting. Let me just look for it. Oh, here it is. In page 72 in the 12 and 12, step 7, it says, we never thought of making honesty, tolerance, and true love of man and God the daily basis of living. I didn't, because before it was all about me, 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 me. To the true purpose of our lives. Like that, like this is it. Like it's not about just staying sober. It's like this, that today I get to make honesty, tolerance, and true love of man and God the daily basis of living. Daily basis of living. Like this is what I need to survive, to do God's work. Yeah, and in return, my friend Terberry, you know this about me, but I don't like how free do you want to be? I'm not a fan of amongst other slogans, right? But that is one of them that I'm not a fan of. How free do you want to be? And I get it because we come in here, you know, maybe I was extremely lazy at one point, defiant most of the time. And so like maybe like that is what some people need to hear to be able to get through this, right? And I understand that. But to me it's like I need to do I get to have this if I do this. And that to me, for Monica, I won't talk about anyone. For me, if I say how free do I want to be, it's about what I want and what I need. And it's not about what I need. Like I just get to work this every single day. And in return, I get all these promises, all these things, great gifts and travel and like all this amazing stuff, friends, family, love. But I don't do it for all of that. I get to do it just because like I get to just do God's will and it's all it just happens. That I don't do it for all this stuff. It really is incredible. I'm just I don't know how many times I said that already, but you really can't make this shit up. You really can't. Yeah. I'm just again amazed at the fact that I was someone that came into this broken and depressed and sad, not wanting to live, suicidal ideations and overdose and psych wards and grippy sock vacations and all these things. And never in my life did I imagine my life to be what it is today. Right? And it's not, like I said, I don't have a lot of great things, but I have everything. Everything. And so with that, before I just continue crying, I'm gonna pass it over to my beautiful, lovely little old man grandpa sponsor, Babe. Thank you guys for allowing me to be of service. My name is Monica. I'm a grateful alcoholic. Thank you.
Hey kids, babe, alcoholic. That was beautiful, Mo. So now I still don't know where I'm going to go with this thing. It really is. It's all about humility. And we say it's all about love. And if God is love, it's all about God. And if when my heart is so full of God, there's no room for me, that's humility. And Bill Wilson had a hard time learning that. Father Dowling had to show him that Bill had to be convinced that all humility begins with humiliation, till he learned that it really doesn't. But it's easy to be humbled in a tragedy. It's easy to be humbled in hopelessness, and that's the kind of humility that we often hear. Eeyore is a very humble little Disney creature, and yeah, my life is just the way it's supposed to be. I keep losing my tail, but oh well, I'm just a plain old donkey. And I'm not a donkey, I'm an ass. But that is a bit of humility, but Bill actually said it, and maybe Monica will do the long form of the 12th tradition at the end. That's where the genuine humility comes from. But what Bill says, perfect humility would be a full willingness in all times and places to find and do the will of God. Simple, huh? Draw close to God, perform his work well. Where did we hear that? Oh, yeah, step 3. We're asking to be shown humility. Draw close to God and perform his work well. I was just at a 12 and 12 meeting, and we were on step 7. And one woman said that the presence of God in her heart was ecstasy. And what is ecstasy besides a drug? It's being lifted out of myself to be in the presence of God. And so I'm thinking like the rapture. The word rape and rapture have the same root because we're forcibly removed. I'm pretty sure it's Carl Jung in the book talks about it, but it could be Silky. But the people, alcoholics here and there once in a while, that's why I think it's Carl, that says here and there once in a while, these people have these violent emotional twists, huge displacements. And what is rapture? What is ecstasy? What is what is to be ecstatic is to be picked up and raised above where I am, to be in the presence of God. That's why it says we live in thankful contemplation. Contemplation is when I rise above myself and can look down upon my life. And that Richard Rohr says that is our conscious contact with God, when I can detach from my life and watch it just flow by. Our friend Bob Carter's, it's actually Bill Cleveland in California that wrote it, but our goal is to simply watch my life unfold. So for me, humility is when God is so huge in my heart, there is no room for me. That's why I've worked so hard to take the word pride out of my vocabulary. If I'm living, doing the will of God, there is no room for pride. I like Thomas Merton's little definition of pride. Merton says, pride is a stubborn insistence on being what we are not and never were intended to be. It's a deep, insatiable need for unreality, an exorbitant demand that others believe the lie that we've made ourselves believe about ourselves. What's that sound like? I put on my mask. I think I get credit for all this stuff. I put, look at me, look at me, look at me. You know, and we hear people say in the meeting, if I'm talking about humility, I'm not practicing it. I suggest that is not necessarily correct. You thought I was going to say something coarse. I suggest we read the last sentence of the 3rd step prayer. Take away my difficulties. The victory over them may bear witness. Bear witness. What's that mean? Stand up and tell somebody, God has been so good to me, I just want to tell everybody. But my difficulties are removed because Babe is so smart, Babe is so clever, Babe is so rich and handsome and tall. You all know that's bullshit. Whoop, there's the coarseness. It's that God is into my heart. What do we bear witness to? God's love, God's way of life. We bear witness to God. There's no room for me in bearing witness. That's why I honestly believe the most sincere form of humility is the enthusiasm to be possessed by and inspired by God. There's no room for Babe's ego in there. You know, you know, and with the pride thing, you know, I still say it because we've grown up using the word pride. But, you know, I want to tell my grandson, you know, because he's such a great athlete. He just headed down to Florida, and I dropped him off at work. And Grandpa, can I give you a hug? 18-year-old kid, big athlete, wants to give his grandpa a hug. Well, yeah, buddy, sure. And so, you know, that's when you're tempted to say, I'm so proud of you. But am I? I'm just in complete gratitude. And gratitude is the song. Gratitude's the deep feeling in my heart. Thankfulness is singing the praise. It's the expression of the gratitude that's in my heart. And what's in my heart is God. So sing praise. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Sing the praises. That's the thankfulness. And so gratitude list is actually a thanks list. Thanks for these blessings. Thanks for these. that our great blessings may never spoil us. That's why we need the genuine humility. I don't think, oh, I'm so grateful for the house, the car, the girl. I got a house and I got a car. I ain't got no girl. But I got all of God's kids. There's no room even for romance because I'm in love with every one of you. I'm in love with life. I'm in love with God. God, the love is the face of God. Some of you heard me talk for 50 minutes on how you can use love instead of the word God if you don't like the word God. I'm just in love with life, and how can I not be enthusiastic about that? And this whole idea that it's an exaltation of this deep emotional feeling in my heart. My heart is so full of God. And, absolute humility would be what Bill says. Complete willingness to draw close to God and perform his work well. And I'm actually thankful. I don't know if I'm so grateful, but I'm thankful that I am a human. I guess I'm grateful, too, that I will never achieve that. That's why it's absolute humility. Because if I was absolutely humble, I would not need God. I would be God. My flaws are what keeps me humble because it allows me to enter God. So for me, humility is when my heart is just overflowing. That's why Monica cries all the time. Because God enters her heart and it just overflows and leaks out of her eyes. And that's the feeling of humility that I love. People call them God shots. But I suggest they're humility shots. When God has entered my life. And, lately I've been talking about when we look back, we see the remarkable things happen when we put our life in God's hands, on page 100, by the way. And I've been looking at all these remarkable experiences over the last 23 years. And it struck me just last week that every one of them, and I'm going to tell you about a couple of them. I don't see a clock, so somebody tell me when it's time to shut the hell up.
You got 18 minutes.
Oh
19 minutes.
man, I'm just getting warmed up then.
19 minutes.
20. Do I hear 20? Do I hear 20?
You got 22 minutes.
I spoke this morning at 6 o'clock and Bill kept adding 2 minutes to my clock. But the times that we felt God, and sometimes it's painful when we feel God. Yeah, my heart is broken. I admit that I'm an alcoholic. I am crushed. The will to live has been driven out of me, by my selfishness, my self-centeredness, my judgmentalism of all of God's kids. What's that but a form of pride? What's the wallowing in self-pity? A form of pride. It's me playing God anyway. So yeah, when I want to tell my grandson, I'm so proud of you, I am just so grateful that God, first of all, put me in this child's life. He's not a child anymore. To be involved in his life and watch him become the young man that he is, a kind, loving, determined, no drive for success, but he is always there. He's a team player. That's humility. Put the team ahead of me. And I don't get to take any pride in that. God puts that in my heart, that you are as important as I am. And so it's so easy to say, I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of this. I'm proud of that. But some of you saw my 5-hour little chunk of oatmeal on the side of the bowl. And you may think, what does that have to do with pride? But I looked at this one. I had a bowl of oatmeal when I was doing my meditation. I can multitask. And there's this little oat. And I got looking at that. God, thank you so much for that little oat. What did it take to get there? It took it took the whole creation of the universe to put that oat on the side of my bowl, to bring it right here, right now, in my heart, to see the history of mankind in an oat. Whoa. That blew me away. That took me 5 hours to get down to 2 paragraphs to send to you guys. And so, if that can happen with just an oat, what can it have to do with someone we love, another one of God's kids? And Monica says, I'm just a vessel. If I say something that offends you, have your higher power work it out with my power, because I have nothing to do with it. That to me is humility, and that is being inspired by and possessed by God. And why shouldn't I tell people about this stuff? It has been the most remarkable journey that I couldn't have made up. And yeah, Mo puts it in nice plain language. You can't make this shit up. What's that but this feeling of God in my heart that is beyond words? Humility. No words can express the loneliness and despair, the bitter morass of self-pity. Another form of humility, because no words can express this. It's God in my heart. And what we find is that is humiliation. That is painful. But what does it do to get to Bill's definition of humility? To seek God and perform his work well. Get out of my own way. Isn't it interesting in the 12 and 12? In step 5, where Bill has a lovely definition of humility. And why is that so important in step 5? Because it's when we recognize our limitations and are willing to strive to become better, to rip the mask off, that insatiable lie that I've been telling myself, and I demand that you see it. That's why the humility in step 5 just opens our heart, because I've ripped all the masks off. Here I am, buddy, me, you, and God. And it sounds so much nicer wrapped in a God blanket instead of standing there naked. But, because, if you try to picture Babe naked, you'll puke. Yuck. One of my sponsees had his screen name was Dumpling. And I'm thinking, I want to be a dumpling. I'm soft and round and squishy, and I really like gravy. So I could become a dumpling. I can just become an agent of God. When Pagey, pew, 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 secret agent. And people might say, boy, that's pretty egotistical. No, it's not. That's humility. Build with me and do with me as you will. Help me bring hope, joy, light, love. Make me an instrument of your peace. Teach me it's better to love than to be loved. Teach me it's better to understand than to be understood. And I don't know if you were drunk like me. I loved blackouts and out of control because I could express my feelings. But you don't understand me. Nobody could understand me. I didn't understand me. To thine own self be true. Until I see who I am and what I am, trying to see myself through God's eyes, then I get to practice genuine humility. I get to be what God intended me to be all the time. I experience these huge emotional displacements. I just can't believe this shit. Wake up weeping in the morning in gratitude. I thought I was the only one that did that. That was in my first year or two. Literally, my first thought wrong is bullshit, by the way. My first thought every single morning is, morning, God, here I am, surprise me. And then I sing. Monica taught me that, to sing the praises and the hallelujahs. That's giving thanks. Love wholeheartedly, be surprised, give thanks and praise. So I sing, praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. The whole doxology, even though I don't believe in the Trinity, I believe in the Spirit behind that. And then, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad. So I start singing to God every single morning. Here I am, God, I don't know shit. God doesn't care if I say shit. He gave me an asshole, so he must know where shit comes from. But here I am, God, I come to you with empty hands today. That sounds a little humble, doesn't it? That the set-aside prayer is a beautiful prayer. That's me saying, my hands are empty. I have no answers. I have experiences, but I don't have any answers. That's why I'm not good on giving advice. Newcomers are really, really good at giving people advice. about shit that they've never experienced. So I've been around a long time and I've experienced a lot, and I don't get to tell you that your concept of God is wrong. I don't get to tell you that you can't do this. I don't get to tell you that you get to have the same experience that I have. But when kindred spirits like Monica and I click, boom, first time ever, kindred spirits click, our hearts are joined, and some people are put in our lives to be that way. Some of them are put in our lives just to annoy us, to prove that we are not God. But I love them just as much. So a couple of the experiences, when Kate was in the hospital in intensive care, and most of you heard this, so go get a snack. But, but I'm sitting in the ICU praying, God, we've been through so much together, and our life is so good now. Please let her live. And no God. He was out bowling with angels, or creating universes, or walking around on the beach in step 11 with those naked girls. I had them to keep the meditation lively. But God, no God. And I'm sitting there, and I didn't get resentful at God. I went home, and I'm thinking, show me what I did wrong. I was praying wrongly, apparently. So the next day I got up, I go back to the ICU, and I'm praying, God, she's been on this ventilator for 3 days, 4 days, whatever it was. If she's going to be a vegetable, she wouldn't want to live that way, God. Please let her die. Take her home with you. Once again, no God. He was out creating universes or something, or maybe it was his 6th day or his 7th day, and it was his day of rest. Whatever it was, God took the day off, I thought. So I go home again. This is sitting 8 hours at a time just beside my wife, afraid she's going to live or afraid she's going to die. I like to say on the 3rd day, Babe rose again. And I found this beautiful little prayer. It's a daily prayer book. And the prayer is, the love of God enfolds me. I love the word. God's love enfolding me. His light surrounds me. His power protects me. Wherever I am, God is. And I was saying that like a little mantra. And there was a huge emotional displacement. I felt the presence of God. All I had to do is get out of the way. I found out that I'd been praying. I've been using God like this cosmic suggestion box. The guy that created me and you and the whole universe, and I'm offering him suggestions on how he ought to run the show. Why would God take a suggestion from a beat-up old drunk, the creator of the universe, and I'm going to tell him what Babe's good idea is? That's humility. That's being overwhelmed. It's emotional displacement that God is in my life. My little racism story that I was intolerant of racists. They were my number one resentment and my number one fear because I love my little granddaughter. My grandkids are black. And I hated racists. And a couple of us have tried to, just like I take the word pride out of my vocabulary, I like the idea of taking the word hate out of my vocabulary too. What's that but a feeling of judgmentalism? And I try not to judge. My Creator, I'm willing that you have all of me, the good and the bad. I don't know what's good. I don't know what's bad. And it ain't any of my business. That's humility. So I'm sitting there, and the guy had his little swastika tattoo, and he and I had been talking. The guy was a real giant because he had rope burn still around his neck. He says, I hate the N-word. And all I did, I said, Tim, you hate my granddaughter? He said, what do you mean, babe? I said, well, my granddaughter is an N-word. At the end of the meeting, he came up to me with tears in his eyes. He said, babe, you probably don't want to hold hands and pray with me. And here was God, this huge emotional displacement. What came out of my mouth is, Tim, there's nobody in this world I would rather hold hands and pray with than you. Boom! There's some humility, huh? Then my story when the color came back. I was running around from the podium preaching. My theme, you guys have figured, those of you know me, I go on these little spurts and themes. but my theme was to dare to risk to love wholeheartedly. My ideal, my final, because I can't think of a bigger word, my final ideal toward all God's kids is equanimity. To love the ugliest person as deeply as I love my grandson, as deeply as I love all of you, to love every one of God's kids with equal intensity. You know, I was not going to love my grandson the same way I loved my wife, you know, because that was people, they put you in jail for that shit. But it's not the physical thing, the feeling in my heart toward every one of God's kids. And that's why I said God gives me some annoying people, but it's God's kid. You know, look at St. Francis running around, hug a leper. Mother Teresa, hug a leper. They got that from Jesus. Hug a leper. Ew! I don't like lepers. I don't like Republicans. I don't like Democrats. I don't shut the heck up. They're God's kid. Pray that they know God's love. And so, and I love people. I can't watch the news because I get triggered. Well, that's a part of a gun or Roy Rogers' horse. My ego can trigger me. What does it say? We're in less danger. Monica and I have talked about the 11-step promises when it says we're in less danger of excitement. Are we delusional? Yup. We decided she and I are delusional. The rest of you can join us if you wanna. But the excitement he's talking about is the agitation that I get my underwear in a twist just watching this stuff. Do I really believe that they're all God's kids? Do I believe their motives are pure? Absolutely not. Doesn't mean that we have to get run over by them, but I still have to love them. And Bill, in step, I don't know, 11 or 12, where he says, very few people can say that they love everybody. Because Bill had a hard time with humility. Bill had a hard time with emotional sobriety because Bill was still codependent. I can intellectually understand codependence, but I'll never know what it feels like to be it. So anyway, I was running around on the podium preaching, dare to risk loving wholeheartedly. And I'm picturing St. Francis and St. Clare. When Clare, I can just see her dinner table after she cut off all her hair and joined the hippie to rebuild the Church of San Damiano. And Claire, take your hood down. You're at the dinner table. And she drops her hood, and there's her hair all cut off. I could just see her father's face. What the heck did you do? Well, I'm running away to rebuild the Church of San Damiano, gaze into the eyes of crucified Christ, and try to become in the image and likeness of him. I'm going to go out and find a whole bunch of lepers to help. I could just see that little dinner probably did not go well. When St. Francis threw all his father's merchandise out the tire. His father was a clothing merchant. And he threw them all out of the tower. These are not ours. The birds of the field, they don't spin, the lilies of the field. These are all God's fabric. So, man, get out of my house, you goof. And so Francis took off all his clothes and left. Am I willing to go that far? Not really. But I strive toward that perfect image. And I find it interesting the Franciscans do not pray the prayer of St. Francis. Isn't that odd? Because St. Francis would never put so much of himself into a prayer. And it's a prayer for humility. So I happen to actually love the prayer of St. Francis. I think it's my job description now. But anyway, so I'm preaching daring to love wholeheartedly. And I took an hour or two off of work, and it was like 100 degrees, and I get to go play golf. And I walked 2 holes and it started raining. I go, oh, crap. And so I trudged back in through the clubs in the back of the truck, and the sun came out. I said, well, I'll try it again. And I got to 3 holes, and the 3rd hole is back by the first tee, back in that direction. And it's hot, and it's steamy, and it's pouring rain. And I'm, slow day, huh, God? All right. And I took off an hour of work to do this. And threw the clubs in the back of the truck, and then I'm driving down the road. I get to the intersection of two little backcountry roads, because that's all we have around here. Tear Bear's seen them. And here's the short bus, well, y'all know what the short bus is. And so I'm thinking, oh, geez, here I am now. I'm sweaty and wet, and it's steamy and it's hot, and I'm going to have to stop at every farmhouse of every inbred son and daughter of every farmer in Allegheny County. And sure enough, it stopped at the very first farmhouse. And golf is a very spiritual game. But we play way too much. But there was always this kid working in his dad's front yard. He was probably 16 years old. Big strapping boy, probably 6'2", and just a worker and worker. One day on the way to the golf course, we saw his bloody sneaker in the road. So we saw that he'd been run over. And I found out that he'd lived, but I didn't know how he was doing. And that was the farmhouse where the short bus stopped. And off the short bus comes, and thank God they got the don't pass the bus sign, because this guy came out, huge kid, and he's got a little Donald Duck backpack on. And you know when your kids are Feeney's age, when they see you and they just light up that you're everything to them? That's what I saw. And here's this kid's father standing in the driveway. And I'm just sitting pissing and moaning. And hear this great big strapping boy grin from ear to ear. And here's this father standing in the driveway with nothing but love and joy, and they run together, they embrace each other, and I cry every time I tell this. They put their arm around each other and they walk up the driveway. And that's what I say. That's love. That's unconditional love. That father's plans and hopes for that boy are shattered, and his love grew stronger. Do I dare to love that way? I sure love to try. And I sat there, and maybe it was that I was looking through tears. Maybe it's because the sun came out. But every flower in that guy's field just lit up. I saw colors in the world. This is love. This is love. That's a huge emotional displacement. That's humility. Is that bragging when I tell you that? If you think so, God bless you. I'm here to tell you about God's love. I'm here to bear witness to God's power, God's love, God's way of life. And so it is not arrogance to talk about humility. And I'll end with the, well, y'all know when Kate was dying in my meditation, where God took me into his world and said, babe, in my world, somebody is saying, this is the best day of my life. I fell in love. We're having a baby. And y'all know that's a long story. But sometimes I have to kill off Kate quickly, sometimes slowly. But she always ends up dead in the end. And I learn a spiritual lesson that I got to love that woman. And I live in eternal gratitude that this woman was part of my life for 46 years. The woman where I bit her, that got me to Alcoholics Anonymous, that got me to this program, that got me to this God, that got me to the place where I can say, thank you, God, for having her with me. And that's when I learned the lesson that I don't even get to have bad days. They're usually the Eeyores, too. I'm just having a bad day. I guess it's acceptance is the answer. And acceptance is an answer. It's a beginning. Acceptance without willingness is misery, and willingness without action is fantasy. But acceptance is very important. But there's more. God's like the late night infomercial guy. But wait, there's more. It's the never-ending story. And so I no longer have bad days. I realize I have selfish days. God, I wanted her to live. I would have wanted her to die. God, don't you remember 15 years ago when you learned how to pray? And now you're feeling all sad and gloomy that the love of your life is wasting away and dying. You forget that she put 46 years into our relationship. How can I not be grateful? How can I not be joyful? Because I'm being selfish. And isn't it interesting? Selfishness, self-centeredness is the root of our problems. Thank God we have a 12-step program that gets us past the selfishness. we get to learn to love. We get to experience these huge emotional displacements where pride has no room, where ego has no room, but I still have one. That's why we get the little trials and low spots. And I ain't out looking for lepers to hug right away. But would I hug one if one showed up? I'd like to think so. And I'll end this guy, Father Dan Riley, a Franciscan priest, actually ordained one, not just a low-life brother, wrote a book called The Franciscan Lectio, the way that St. Francis and St. Clare read the world. You know, you hear about reading the room, reading people, and Lectio Divina is reading the Bible. But Francis saw that there was a Lectio before there was a Bible. The lilies of the field, the birds in the sky, love. And that's how he read the world. And the way Franciscan Lectio, the Franciscans, Clare, and there's a whole gang of those spiritual people, say, first observe. Look, they gazed in the eyes of the crucified Christ in San Damiano Church. Gaze into the eyes of Christ. Gaze at a cow. Gaze in the eyes of the person sitting across from you. Just gaze. And then they say meditate, meditatio. When I'm gazing, it's etanoia. It's what I see right now. So then in meditation, this is where in step 11 we get to envision ourselves. In meditation, we ask to be shown a sane and sound ideal. It's where our imagination is fired up. And it's not just contemplating my navel. That's the vehicle. That's the Uber. That's what gets me to the place where I can focus, where I can imagine things. When some Rohr or Merton or one of those guys said that a poet enters into meditation in order to create. A contemplative enters into contemplation to be created. So they meditate, they envision a life different. That's humility. And then in contemplation is where they rise above even the meditation, the imagine, and they ask God, show me how I can take that out into the world. To create me, build with me, and do with me as you will. Make me an instrument of your peace. What's that going to look like? And the final phase of Lectio is Actio. Get off your ass and do something. Don't sit in the closet chanting Om Mani Padme Om. Go out there and mix it up with God's kids. It says to. What can I pack into the stream of life? Be on the firing line of life. Take somebody's hand, change somebody's life. Get off your ass, you lazy little troll. You have a higher purpose that has been given to me in thankful contemplation of him who presides over us all. And Father Dan died in Brother Kevin's car. Kevin says, Dan, put on your seatbelt. And he said, Dan stiffened up. Kevin thought, geez, he's having a hard time with the seatbelt. Well, the poor guy died. But I went to his book signing, and I was going to kid him. He's not even an alcoholic, but I like him anyway. He and I always got a kick out of each other. And I hadn't seen him in about 15 years. And I'm thinking, holy cow, he got old. He was still wearing his running shoes, but they were shuffling from the podium to the chair where he could sign his books. And so I was going to kid him, and I was going to kid him that, yeah, you Franciscans take this vow of poverty and you got the nerve to charge $30 for your book. But instead, he looked up at me, and he did have those sparkling Irish eyes. He looked at me, and this is the most humbling thing I ever heard that I'm reluctant to say because it sounds like ego. But he looked up at me and said, babe, God's light is shining in you. That is genuine humility. So thank you, kids.